Okay. So good morning, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and get started because half an hour is not much time. Hello. Let me put the link. Let me admit one more person. Put the link in the chat. Those are the slides. And right now, asking folks if they want to go to the second slide, you'll find a link to a Jamboard. Trying to find out what is your definition of artificial intelligence. Okay. So just so you know, a little background about myself. As I mentioned about a minute ago, I'm new to Montgomery County. I've been teaching in St. Mary's County for a while. And a few years ago, I'm a computer science teacher, originally a math teacher. A few years ago, I was given the opportunity to teach a summer artificial intelligence camp for high school students at the University of Maryland. And I had never even considered teaching artificial intelligence. I thought that that was something that you didn't worry about until you got to grad school. So it was new to me. But I found out that it is very much something that we should be teaching our kids about, and even as young as kindergarten. So since that opportunity, I have been implementing artificial intelligence into all my computer science classes. And right now at Blair High School, I have the opportunity to teach an elective to kids that have had, significant computer science before in the past. So I'm teaching it kind of at all different levels, including implementing it into my fundamentals of computer science, my AP computer science. But even more interesting than that is that offering professional development to teachers K through 12, teaching them what is artificial intelligence, and that they can incorporate it into their classroom as well. So, and that's been really interesting. So this Jamboard is an example of one kind of warm-up that I have done in my classes, with just getting started with, well, what do you kids know already? What do you know about artificial intelligence? Because this is something that is present in their life. They use it every day. We use it every day. It's not some strange science fiction kind of thing that we see in the movies, but it's real and it's here. So this is kind of like the Hello World. If anybody teaches computer science and programming, there's always that Hello World program that you go through, getting your first lines of code down. And to me, the first AI lesson is, well, what do you already know? What is your definition of artificial intelligence? So, so just wanted to show that to you. And like I said, half an hour is going to go by very quickly. I even set my alarm to make sure, because there's another session coming up. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through really, really top level kind of some terms and whatnot about artificial intelligence, demonstrate to you a couple of tools that I use in my classroom, and then give you links to a ton of resources and some ideas of where maybe you could go with this. So what is artificial intelligence, by the way? A lot of people argue about what it means, but the surprising thing to a lot of people is that it's actually been around for quite a while. The concept of artificial intelligence has been around literally since the 1950s. As soon as computers came about, people were talking about trying to get machines to think like humans and developing programs in that way. It's only more recently that we've started to get into the really heavy duty artificial intelligence called deep learning, which is a subset of machine learning. And that is because of the advancements in hardware and the speed of computers and things that have happened. So there's a lot of different layers to artificial intelligence. And there's a lot of different types of artificial intelligence as well. There are still some regular rule-based programs out there, just not teaching the machine to think or answer questions, but rather just going through an algorithm. For example, getting directions from one point to another is not really a machine learning thing. It's actually just an algorithm that you can program your computer to do. As opposed to machine learning, and I'll give you a couple examples of that. where we want the program to learn something and then to make decisions based on what. So I'm not going to show this video, but this is a video that I show all of my classes that I've ever taught artificial intelligence to, whether it's like freshmen in a fundamentals class or the juniors and seniors that I'm teaching now, because it's a really nice introduction and it brings up a lot of the vocabulary that goes throughout the course and the conversations that we're going to have about artificial intelligence. The fact that you need data, lots and lots and lots of data. From that data, you need to pick these things called features. Okay, what is it interesting in that data that we want to learn about? You need to train an algorithm. You need an algorithm, some kind of program. And that algorithm is going to come up with what's called a model. And that model is going to be used to make predictions or answer questions. So if you get a chance, I encourage you to watch this video. Also, just to go back for a second, that there's a lot of really cool examples of real life using artificial intelligence everyday kind of thing. The name of the video is Solving Problems Big, Small, and Prickly, because there's a cucumber farmer, an Asian cucumber farmer family, who takes a lot of time sorting their cucumbers. So the son developed a machine learning model to sort for them. So I thought that was a really cool idea, get the kids thinking about different real life examples of using AI. So this is something, depends on the level of your students and how much you want to get into it. But talking about specifically machine learning and training, that part where we take all this oodles and oodles of data, we pick things in the data that we want to train. And what we do, what training means, is updating weights. And if there's anybody in there with a math background, when we say model, we're literally talking about a mathematical equation that's going to be used. And the weights are just the coefficients in these equations. So that's what we mean when we're talking about artificial intelligence. We're talking about changing numbers in an equation. And then we go back and we do this looping thing to try to minimize the kind of like finding the best fit line is really what we're doing. So once we get that equation, as you can see, it's even f of x in here, we pull in some new data that our model has never seen, and we run it through and we try to say, okay, well, what is this? What is this thing? I'm going to show you some examples. One of them is like training image recognition to tell the difference between a dog and a cat. Those are your labels, dog and cat. So now I bring in a new picture and it applies that model to that new picture and it comes up with, I think this is a cat or I think this is a dog. So that is really quick concept of how what machine learning is doing. But, and this is another neat aspect, well, not neat aspect, an important aspect of teaching artificial intelligence is it doesn't have to be in a computer science classroom. I feel like this could be incorporated in any classroom because there's an ethical side to it and there's an impact side to it. So I incorporated it in my lessons, but I also think it's really cool when I see English teachers, PE teachers, even kindergarten teachers, you know, talking to the kids about what do we want AI to do? Do we want it to help us? How do we want AI to help us? Or what are some ways that we think AI might be harming us? Because it's an important discussion. So on this slide are just a couple of really quick examples of things that you could have discussions with in your class. Like, for example, the concept of deep fakes. This has been a problem. So this is a really quick thing. It's actually kind of fun to play, but it's also kind of scary because just over the last 2 or 3 years that I've been using this site, it's getting harder and harder to tell which is fake and which is real. So here's 2 pictures. One of them was generated by an AI, and one is a picture of a real person. This one's a hard one for me. And I apologize, people have been coming in. I'm going to put the link to the slides back in the chat there. Okay, there's the link to the slides. Gosh, I'm going to guess, it says who's real. I think the person on the right is real. I was correct. Woo! You know, I don't always get this right anymore. Like I said, just 2 or 3 years ago, it was a lot easier to tell because the AI would make dumb mistakes, like one ear would be a lot lower than the other. The teeth would look kind of gnarly and things like that. I'm going to say the person on the right again. Phew, I was right. But there are some tells. I don't know if anybody's ever used something like this before. And the kids notice, the students notice after playing this game for a while. The AI almost 100% of the time will choose to have the eyes focusing like they're looking straight at the camera, is one tell, other than the fact that it could be mistakes. Let a few more folks in. I'm going to put the link in the chat to the slides. Okay. All right, so going back, oh, and AI and creativity. And this is why I think it's really cool, even in the realm of arts. I follow a couple people on Twitter who use artificial intelligence in their artwork to develop new and cool things. And writing. I don't know if you folks are aware, but there are some news articles that get posted for us to read online that were not even written by a person. So they just have these bots that put together these short articles and post them. So interesting. Actually, yeah, so there's a couple of links here. If you have a time, this Sunspring video, and if it starts playing, I apologize. It might. It's probably going to do a commercial. I probably shouldn't have clicked on that so quick. It goes to a commercial. But so what some folks did was they took a whole bunch of science fiction screenplays and they fed them in as data to a machine learning algorithm. And then they asked, after it developed a model, they asked that model to write a new screenplay. And it's interesting, if you get a chance, the video is not that long. So a couple of folks took that screenplay and actors and created this video, and it's rather bizarre. It's almost understandable, but not really. But it's just interesting what we can have AI do and how it's getting much better at it. The one that's a little bit more difficult to tell is when it's writing things like poetry or if it's creating art, because there's a lot more expression in that. So, like I was saying, regardless of what type of class you're teaching, you could always talk about the impact and ethics of AI. So for example, is the AI doing what you think it's doing? So there's a classic example where they were researchers, as it says, building a model to differentiate coyotes between coyotes and wolves. And it looked like it was working perfectly, because when they went back and tested on the data that they'd used to train it, it was like, bam, we can tell. Until they started bringing in new images and realized it didn't train on the animals at all. It was training on the background of the animals, whether one was in snow or grass. So that's just it's not impactful, but big concern with artificial intelligence and how it's training. Excuse me, and I have a couple other examples here that I was recently teaching my own students about this and did a quick search. Every time I do a quick search on impact and ethics of AI, I find new links, new information, new concerns that people have out there about not just the fact that it might not be doing what it was trained to do, but the privacy issues that are coming up in regards to that, outing people that didn't expect to be outed and things like that. So lots of different concerns. And I'm not sharing this with you so that you can, when you get a chance, go through and click on those links and check these out. And even more recently, especially, with COVID, folks are trying, fix problems, let's throw AI at it, and it didn't necessarily do a good job. For example, this one at the top, they were scanning information from different hospitals and putting it together and found out that it didn't train on the medical data. It was actually trained in order to make labels based on the fonts that the hospitals were using. So a lot of concerns. And I think I just realized now how much all of that is negative, but the purpose of it is in the bringing up to the kids to make them more aware and to want them to make a difference, also to want to be part of the solution to the problem kind of thing, not to say that AI is bad. I probably should include in here, now that I'm going through this yet again, some good examples, some good impacts of AI, because there are tons and tons of them. And I usually also have my students do that. Always, with every example that's, okay, this is bad, this is a concern, come up with some good ones as well. And there are plenty of good examples up there of the good that AI is doing. So what I'd like to do now is I want to demo just 2 tools that I've used in my classroom that have been tremendous in a lot of different ways. Machine learning for kids, even though it sounds like it's for little kids, this can be used for little kids, but also all the way up through high school. Blair had their hackathon. I introduced this tool and a couple of the teams went with it and they were able to make a chat bot in machine learning for kids. So I thought that was really cool. Google's Teachable Machine, again, it could be used for a wide range of students because it's so easy to use, but it also allows you to take the model that you're developing and put it into a program if you're advanced. So the first one, machine learning for kids, and I've linked in here all of the resources that I've given folks in order to use this on your own. But I would like to show you mine. And I have made an account. And I have to apologize. Can you folks now see it says your machine learning projects? Because I always forget if I chose the window or the whole screen. I think I saw a head shake.
Yeah, we can see it.
Awesome sauce. Okay. All right. So I'm logged in. I do have an account with ML for Kids. You do not need an account to create a simple model, though. Because the one cautionary thing is, in order to create an account, you have to set up an API with Watson Computer so that it will save your models online in the cloud. And it was also run in the cloud kind of thing. It takes a couple of steps. It's free, and the documentation is here. But I just wanted to forewarn you, if you want to create an account as a teacher, there's a couple of steps you have to go through in order to do that. But what I've done is, this is clicked on projects. I've created a couple projects in here, and I'm going to show you this one that I did. It's training on text. What does that mean? The data itself is going to be text. So you come into train, and remember I mentioned the word labels. So we have our data, and from the data, we pick features. And we want to use these features in order to create labels. So the labels that I'm using here are silly, family, pet, and neutral. So in other words, I'm going to write a simple chatbot that's going to respond if it thinks that you're talking about your pet versus your family, or saying something silly, or maybe neutral. So as you can see, we're pseudo-generating our data by just typing into these different buckets, okay? So I have already put some in. This is the minimal amount of data that you want. If when I do this in the classroom, I have the kids work together so they can create a lot more data. So once they create their buckets, their labels, they put their data in, then you go into learn and test. And I've already done this because sometimes it takes a couple of minutes, but normally there would be something that you click on that says go ahead and train. I've already done it. So now I'm at the point where I can test. So there's a spot here for me to enter a new phrase that perhaps I've never used before. So I'm going to type in something like, hello, how are you? And hit enter, and it's going to come back and it's going to say that it thought that was silly, but it's only got 37% confidence in that. So remember, the model has to choose a label. So it's interesting it didn't pick this one necessarily as neutral, but then again, I didn't have a whole lot of data in there. I need to feed my cat, which I hope comes back and says I'm talking about my pet. We will see. And it's being really slow today. Oh my gosh. Why is it being slow today? And my cat chimed in. Okay, normally it's slow when it's training. Normally it is not slow. I am sorry. Oh, there it is. Good. Whew, it came back. It said recognized as pet with 67% confidence. So the kids usually have fun with this. Try to see, what works and what doesn't. And I'll talk the good conversations about the kind of data that you trained on. Maybe it's going off of your punctuation. If you're talking about being silly and you have lots of punctuation in there versus other things. So, okay, what does this mean? So a lot of things. You gave an example of collecting some data, identifying some labels, training a model, and testing a model. But you could take this a step further, and you could take this model, this equation, and you could put it into a program. So if you go up here, and anybody, regardless of whether you're logged on or not, can go over to worksheets. And here are full instructions for taking the model you just built and putting it into a program. So for my foundations kids, we would create a Scratch program. The easiest one I've done is this Make Me Happy, where you train on like happy and sad, 2 labels, and then you type into the Scratch program a phrase, and based on how it says whether it's happy or sad, it's going to change the sprite's image that appears there. But you can also do in Python programming. So for the kids that were Blair Hacks, they took theirs, they imported their model into a Python program, and they were able to create a chatbot in there based on their model. And there are, if you get a pre-trained, like I said, I've barely scratched the surface on what you can do in here. There is so much more. And one other place besides worksheets that you want to look at is pre-trained model. You can literally create a program and use that program to train your model and then have the program play itself. So much stuff that you can do. So that's machine learning for kids. And close that. The other tool is Google's Teachable Machine. And I have an example of using image recognition. And this is a lot of fun for the kids. I have mine open here. Yes, I do. This is good because you definitely don't need an account, and you can save your model to your Google Drive. So I created this particular model months ago. I just had to go over to the menu and say open project from Drive, bring it in. As you can see, I uploaded pictures, but you can also use the camera on your computer to take pictures as well. Originally, because years ago when I started using this, the kids only had desktops. This is pre-COVID. They didn't have cameras, so they had to get pictures to train their model. So as you can see, I trained it on the 2 labels of cat and dog, and here's all of my data. And then I'm testing it with this picture of a cat, and it 100% thinks it's a cat. I have some other pictures I can check with it. Where did my folder go? There it is. So I'm going to bring over, whoop. Sorry, kind of giving that away. Bring over another picture. It's a dog, and it says dog 100%. But I don't know if anybody saw this. What if I put in Baby Yoda? Baby Yoda, is Baby Yoda a dog or is Baby Yoda a cat? Baby Yoda is a dog. I always like throwing that one in there. Usually get the kids to try to guess what they think it would be first. Okay, but like I said, you could also use your camera. Just open another project. I already have this one. So I have one, happy versus angry. This is going to be embarrassing for me, but too bad. Where I just took pictures of myself making different faces to train the model. So a whole bunch of faces of me being happy, me being angry, and a bunch without me in it. And then I would train it, and then you could use the camera itself to test it. So again, I usually get the kids to come in and learn how to use the tool. And then the next step after that is like, how would you now use this tool to try to solve a problem? So kind of like a follow-up project to all of this is to get the kids to propose. And I give them some ideas along the lines of, okay, in Maryland, we have 2 kinds of poisonous snakes, but I can't tell which is which. Maybe I can do an image recognition thing where I can take a picture on my camera, on my phone, and I could run it through maybe a little app that I make that's going to identify whether it's poisonous or not, or if it's a good one, or how to tell if I have poison ivy in my backyard, or hand signals. So that would be a really good use of the camera where the kid trains it on different hand signals. So I've had kids do a lot of good projects on this. So by the way, this is kind of like a commercial plug, and I apologize. So I also work for Maryland Center for Computing Education, and as I mentioned before, doing PD for teachers. And this coming summer, we're offering, actually there's 3 different levels of PD just on artificial intelligence. The first one is the introduction to AI, and a lot of the slides that I've just shown you tonight are from bits and pieces of that. So that PD is, so you meet in person 6 nights, 1 hour a night over 3 weeks, but you also take an online course from IBM, MindSpark Learning with IBM, and it teaches you the basics of what is artificial intelligence. And in the in-person meetings, you get a chance to, learn a little bit more, interact with other teachers and their ideas, and come up with your own lesson plan. And taking that course, you can get 1 CPD credit. There's a follow-up to that, or you don't have to necessarily take in the introduction. There's another course, Applying Artificial Intelligence, and I'm going to be leading that one this summer, where we go deeper into the choices for curriculum, which there's tons and tons of curriculum out there. Getting further into machine learning for kids and Teachable Machine, and actually writing and making different products using those tools. So that was a little bit later on in the summer. And also what I've shared with you on this slide, and I apologize for the folks that have been coming in. Let me put this back in the chat. There's the link to the slides. This is a document that was put together as part of that introduction to AI that is just barely scratching the surface of all the different resources that are possibly available if you want to learn about AI, or if you want to put AI lessons into your coursework. Okay, so like I said, there's just so much there. And even something as fun as like using a little warm up, using one of these cool tools that says using play to teach AI. So lots of cool things that you can do there. And we do have barely left any time. Let me stop sharing and see if any folks from the session have any questions for me.
Do you personally use tools like OpenCV in your higher level stuff or at Maryland?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you very well.
Do you use OpenCV for visual stuff in your higher level classes at Maryland, or?
I'm embarrassed to say I don't know what you mean by that, so no.
No, OpenCV is just a visual thing for machine learning and deep learning of like video objects for robots, and I know you were talking about
Right.
pictures.
Actually, so the courses that I teach are kind of more like learning about AI. So yeah, at the higher level, we do programming, but we're using things like TensorFlow and whatnot, not kind of the higher level things. Now in the summer at UMD, the kids do get to do projects with graduate students and professors, and some of them might be using some of the tools that they have. But I'm the teacher there, so I'm teaching them the basics, the building blocks of AI. Yeah.
That's a,
I hope I answered your question.
yeah, thank you. You have a lot
Okay.
of cool resources there.
Thank you.